Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michelle Riconscente.
Hi. Good afternoon. It's now afternoon. So I've just moved to New York from Los Angeles, so I am at the New York Hall of Science, but for the past 2 years I've been working with Game Desk, collaborating closely with Lucien Vitale, the founder and director of Game Desk. Game Desk is based in LA, and they create all kinds of amazing new learning opportunities for youth, especially underrepresented minority youth in urban settings, through gaming and simulation. And the idea is to engage students in their lives, in their education, through technology. And the project that I'm presenting to you today is one of our favorite projects. It's called DOJO. It's a collaboration with Dr. Margarita Lightfoot from UC San Francisco. DOJO is a 3D game that teaches youth how to regulate their emotions. And it does that using biofeedback. And the inspiration for this project came from research around interventions for youth that tended to be in-person interventions, role-playing, to help learn to regulate your emotions. But there are some challenges to that, doing that in person. Primarily, the traditional role-playing methods don't give you real-time feedback. It's also very subjective, right? So you need to ask the person, how were you feeling? When were you stressed? And that is very subject to the person's own subjectivity. So you aren't necessarily getting a clear read. It's not visible to the person. It's not visible to the facilitator. So Lucien and Dr. Lightfoot decided to explore how technology might support this process of equipping students, particularly urban youth, with skills to regulate their emotions. Why would we do that? If you know, thank you. If you know how to regulate your emotions, we all know this. When you get stressed, you make bad decisions, right? You do stupid things. It's the same for kids. And so the idea is if we can help kids start to regulate their emotions, they then learn to make better decisions, both in the game and eventually in life. This is our goal. So in this project, early development was to explore biofeedback devices. Would they even work? They actually had to build the API for this device. They explored lots of different devices. They can tend to be pretty pricey, especially if you get into the medical, clinical quality. So they found a device called the IOM, produced by Wild Divine, and that runs about $200 per unit. They explored creating an emotometer, and they had people play stressful games wearing this emotometer so that they could start to visualize and test out that part of the project. And then they explored early game designs, and they ran into another challenge, which is that to create real-world scenarios that were truly immersive, like bullying scenarios, was going to go way beyond budget and timelines. So the solution they came up with was to create an abstract approach to generating player stress. So DOJO starts off in a New York subway. We did not know we'd be presenting it here when we created it, but it starts off in a New York subway. You meet this character who's clearly going through a very difficult time. See that right away, it's generating an emotional reaction. You take on the persona of this character, you find yourself in this station, and you begin to look around and explore. And you discover a chamber to a hidden passage. Just to give an initial feel. So you got a quick glimpse there of the IOM device. It fits on the hand, and you can wear it while you manipulate the mouse. We're obviously having a little trouble there. So we'll get a better look later, less pixelated. So quick mention here that there is a whole process that Game Desk has developed for how do you bring together content experts, whether it be for emotion regulation or for learning geoscience, aerodynamics, and bringing that successfully into a truly entertaining and engaging game experience. I'm not going to detail that process here, but I do welcome you tomorrow afternoon, I think around 2 or 3. Lucian Mattel will be giving a featured presentation on the whole process and do a deep dive there. So if you're interested in how to make this really happen across these different types of expertise, go check that out. So quick overview, emotion regulation. What is it? First of all, you need to realize that you are stressed. Second, you need to have something you can do about it. So you need to know strategies that you can use. And thirdly, and here's the trick, you have to actually use those strategies when you find yourself stressed or worked up. So how does DOJO support this? DOJO, first of all, provides visual support. It shows you when you're worked up with this meter that goes from blue to purple to red, the more your heart rate increases. Secondly, DOJO trains the player in different strategies they can use to take control of their emotional state. And thirdly, and here's where I think really key to the success of the game, is that it then puts the player into challenges where they must remain calm to beat the challenge. And we're going to see how that works. But the biofeedback is directly integrated into gameplay. So here is where you arrive when you walk down that tunnel and you enter this main dojo room. And you get a little intro here. So you're instructed to take that device that's sitting by your computer and put it on your hand. And what happens as you put that device on is the game begins to read your baseline. It starts to read what is your pulse. And now we present the emoto. Tells the player where they're at. Blue is cool. Purple, getting a little worked up. And if you see red, it means you really need to calm down. So we built DOJO to be modular. You'll see that there's a whole series of doors here. And what's great about this door approach is we're able to build as many different dojo training rooms as we like. So we have 3 that we're going to take a look at today. They target fear, frustration, and anger. And so here the player is introduced to the idea of these dojo chambers. So you have that short introduction, and then you're free to explore. The player just can walk around and explore the space. So let's take a look at our first chamber, the frustration dojo. And we're going to go straight to the training here. The frustration training is muscle relaxation. And all of these trainings were designed to be very quick and intensive and to give you something you can take away right away and use. We are gearing this for youth, so we know that there's a short attention span, and so you'll see that these are all quick pieces. So here's a dojo master in the frustration room. You are always free to choose training or challenge. So the player can come back and do the training as many times as they'd like, or they can skip it entirely and go straight to the challenge. And we also created these trainings to reflect real-world timing. So when you do the full training, you're tensing and holding for the amount of time that you would if you were doing this in real-life settings. Once you have an ability, once you go through a training, you unlock that ability. And the idea here was to give players a sense of having acquired a new power. And that power is something that they're going to use in gameplay, but again, we're looking to have this flow over into real life. So the idea that you have this new ability, you can use it to make your life better. The frustration maze, this is the challenge that goes with the frustration chamber. And frustration maze here was inspired by a game we all know and love, Operation. Right? You're trying to perform surgery, and if you go outside the boundaries, you get shocked, you get punished. And the whole thrill of the game is you're afraid of that punishment, and so you're trying to stay within the tracks. What you notice here, if you saw that dot, the yellow dot is you. When you get worked up, the dot gets bigger. So it becomes impossible to navigate this maze if you don't stay calm. So again, the biofeedback is feeding right into gameplay so that the person is getting constant feedback and in a way is obliged to control their emotional state in order to beat the game. So the next room is the fear dojo. And here we're going to learn a breathing exercise, but I'm also going to show you, each of these has an entrance. And the idea is to generate a kind of mystery, a sense of being in a new place, a place that's beautiful to explore. So we enter the space here, and once again, we get to choose training or challenge. Here's our dude in the hot tub. So the dude is in the hot tub. He says, as you can see, it's boiling hot in here, but I'm perfectly calm, and you can learn to do this too. So here's our breathing training. And this is one of my favorites. And the idea is to teach very quickly a key to staying in control of your emotions. So nice, quick, get the idea across. So here the player practices in the training. They're encouraged first to get worked up so that they get themselves worked up and then to use that breathing technique to calm down. Again, the timing here parallels what you would do in a real-world intervention. And the challenge that goes along with the fear dojo, the breathing training, is the classic nightmare. You're in a terrible situation and you're trying to run and you can't move. You know that one, right? You're trying to run and nothing happens and this horrible thing is chasing you. So the fear challenge draws on that nightmare. And in the fear challenge, you are chased by an evil spirit, or rather an angry spirit. It's not really evil, just upset that he's been removed from his bones. And so your job is to collect all his bones in this maze, put them into a coffin. But of course, the whole time he doesn't understand and he's chasing you down. And if you get worked up, the room goes dark, you slow down, you can't outrun him, so you can't beat the game. So that is the fear dojo. And finally, the anger dojo. You can see here that we've tried to work with a blend of hip-hop and Egyptian and Japanese culture. Your meter is constantly running, showing you your pulse rate. And it looks like the sound didn't come through for these rooms, but each of the rooms has its own character. So this one's a little bit of a kind of mysterious, creepy background music that plays. And this is our third master. We can always choose training or challenge. And one thing I haven't said yet is that, so my particular area of expertise and passion is around assessment. There's no accounting for taste. But I love to try to assess, are we really learning things here? Are things really changing? And the way that DOJO was created, this game, was actually keeping track of user actions. And one of the things we're doing right now is analyzing the relation between choices for training and challenge, amount of time spent in the game, heart rate, patterns, and looking at whether the experience in the game then leads to changes outside of gameplay in real life. So in this last training I'm showing you here, it was inspired by the hand slap game, right? You know the game where you're trying not to get your hand hit by the person you're playing with. And we wanted to have some kind of simulation of a kind of bullying experience, but we, again, trying to do that on the cheap. And we came up with this hand-slapping game where you're provoked You also learn positive self-talk, so you have both the visualization and positive self-talk here. Using your mind to build yourself up. So you get these different phrases that you can refer to, and then later on in the game, you can call them up to remind you, again, to help you practice. So the slapjack hand slap challenge, and you get provoked with all of these questions. Does your dad ignore you? Are you fat? Do you have any friends? Have you ever been beat up? So the idea is to combine this kind of needling the player with this hand slapping experience. So as you're answering these questions with this kind of Ouija board setup, you have to avoid the unpleasant experience of having your hand slapped virtually. So those are 3 examples of rooms we've built out. What we're doing right now is we're engaging in an evaluation. We've had about 200 students from 2 urban high schools in the Los Angeles area engage with a controlled experiment. So half the students have been playing the game for a month, the other half have not. Everyone took a pre-test, and then the half of the kids went on to play this game for a month, and now everyone's taking a post-test, and we'll be able to compare whether the students who had exposure to the game show signs of improved emotion regulation outside of gameplay. And we'll also be looking at how those responses correlate with their in-play game choices and activities. Future directions. You may have noticed that some of the rooms in the dojo chamber were tied up with caution tape. We have all kinds of projects we're looking at developing out around this idea. First of all, we're exploring new devices. When we first created DOJO, there were very few devices out there that even attempted to do this at any kind of consumer level. Now those devices have multiplied, and it's becoming possible to have much less intrusive devices, things you might wear on your wrist that can wirelessly communicate your biofeedback data, even with more precision, back to a game environment. We're also looking at really going into this idea of mining the data that the game itself gives us so that we don't have to leave the experience of the player and the training to find out whether it's working. We can use that game data to know right away what's happening and to inform future decisions. And then we're also looking at how to apply this technology to other areas. For example, corporate dojo, aggressive driving dojo, speaker presentation dojo, all the kinds of situations that get you worked up. How can we use this idea where you become aware that you're worked up, you know you have something to do about it, and then you have that opportunity to associate repeatedly over time the feeling of stress with applying the strategy successfully to bring yourself back into control. So we're really excited about this project. Thank you for taking part in the demo, and we'd love to hear your ideas for how we can bring this idea to new situations and new people. Thank you.